My name is Neil Barker. I'm 57 years old, and for 15 summers, I was the man who paid for the vacation. Everyone else took credit for the summer I finally stopped. My phone had 22 missed calls before 8 in the morning. I didn't pick up once. Before I take you back there, do me one favor. Hit like and subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. It helps more than you know. Now, let me take you to the dock where 15 years of silence finally cracked open. It started the summer after my wife passed. Lynn had loved Lake Huron, the flat, gray mornings. The way the light came off the water in late afternoon, that particular smell of pine and boat fuel that meant summer was actually happening. We'd rented a small cottage near Harrisville for our 23rd anniversary. Just the two of us and a pontoon boat. We barely knew how to drive when she died the following February. I couldn't face another summer sitting in our house in Grand Rapids, listening to the neighbors' lawn mowers. So I called Lakeview Property Management and booked the cottage again. Bigger this time, enough room for my daughter, her husband, my son, whoever needed a reason to show up. That was 15 years ago. The booking never stopped. By the third summer, my daughter had taken over the planning. She made the group chat. She assigned the grocery runs. She decided who slept where. Her husband handled the social side, inviting the neighbors, organizing the boat add-on, making sure everyone knew exactly where to find them on the 4th. He was good at that. He liked an audience. What neither of them ever handled was the money. The cottage ran about $4,000 a week by the time cleaning deposits and fees were stacked up. That's not counting the groceries I picked up on the drive north or the boat rental I added quietly to the same card, or the fireworks I bought at the stand on M72 because someone always forgot. I didn't track it obsessively. I just paid it. Lynn had loved that lake, and as long as the family kept showing up for it, I could tell myself we were still holding something of hers together. That was the deal I made in my own head. Pay for the gathering, and you get to keep the people. Nobody ever told me that wasn't how it worked. Here's the part that should have been obvious, but took me too long to see. Every year I paid, I also got smaller at the table. Year 5, I told a story about rigging temporary power on a job site, and my son-in-law checked his watch in front of everyone. My daughter touched my arm. Dad, people are trying to relax. Year 8, I brought a bag of charcoal because the listing said the grill wasn't stocked. He'd already bought one. He made a point of it. Neil, we got it handled. You don't have to swoop in and fix everything. The table laughed. I set my bag by the door and said nothing. By year 10, I had a chair, the same plastic Adirondack, on the far end of the dock every summer, out past where the kids ran, closer to the reeds than the view. Nobody assigned it to me. It just became where I sat because it was the one nobody else wanted. I could see the whole lake from it, so I told myself I preferred it. Year 12, the water heater gave out. I called Kathy at Lakeview, got it sorted before dinner. Never said a word about it. My son-in-law told the story all weekend like he'd personally wrestled the thing into submission. He called it his house project. Kathy had been handling our account for 8 years. By then she knew my credit card number from memory. Still, I said nothing because saying something would have made it about me. And I didn't want it to be about me. I just wanted to sit on that lake and feel like we were still a family. It took a Saturday afternoon to finally crack it open. I'd driven up a day early to get the keys and air the place out the way I always did. My daughter and her husband arrived the next morning with a carload of friends. The Hendersons from down the street, a couple from his office I'd never met. I was on the dock with a coffee when I heard them come around the side of the house. I stayed where I was. My son-in-law had his closing voice going, the one he uses when he wants to sound casual and impressive at the same time. He was telling the office couple about the cottage, how they'd been coming for years, how he'd found the place. Actually, we basically built this tradition from scratch. He said, takes real effort to keep it running every summer. One of the guests said it must cost a fortune. He laughed honestly. We make it work. It's just a priority. Then I heard my daughter's voice, light and easy. Yeah, it's mostly just coordination. I sat on that dock holding my coffee with both hands. They were 10 feet from me behind the reeds. They couldn't see me. I didn't move. I just listened to my son-in-law describe in comfortable detail a tradition he had never once paid $1 toward. I want to be honest with you. I kept waiting for the anger, and it never quite came. What I felt instead was clarity for the first time in 15 years. I could see the whole thing laid flat. No fog, no excuses, no story. I was telling myself about love and family and Lynn and what she would have wanted. Just the plain shape of what had been happening. I set my coffee mug on the dock. I got back in my truck. I drove home, and I didn't turn on the radio. If you've ever been the one quietly carrying your family, paying, fixing, showing up, and been treated like you were the problem, tell me in the comments. I read everyone and stay with me because what happened next is the part one didn't expect. That night I sat at my kitchen table and pulled up 15 years of bank statements. I went line by line until my eyes burned: the cottage fee, the boat rental, the grocery receipts, the year. The septic backed up and I covered the emergency plumber so nobody's weekend got ruined. I added it all up. I won't say the exact number, but it was more than the down payment on my house. Then I did the other math, the one that actually mattered in 15 summers of paying. How many times did I feel like a father at that table and not a wallet with a heartbeat? I couldn't think of one, not one. Monday morning, I made phone calls, calm ones, the kind of calls a man makes when he's finally doing the obvious thing. Kathy picked up on the second ring. I told her I needed to cancel my standing reservation and remove my card from the account. She went quiet. Mr. Barker, you've had that cottage every 4th of July since 2010. I know, I said, but if my daughter wants to book it going forward, she can set up her own account. I'll give you her contact information. The reservation and the payment have to be in her name. A pause. I understand, sir. I'll need to let her know the account will require a new card on file and a deposit to hold any future dates. That's exactly right. I said, I'm not leaving anyone stranded. I just need my name off the bottom of the page. That call took 4 minutes, 15 years, 4 minutes. My son came over that evening. Still in his work shirt, that copper and refrigerant smell that follows him everywhere from the HVAC jobs. He stopped in the doorway and looked at me. Something happened, he said, not a question. So I told him the doc, the voices through the reads, the math, all of it. He sat down at my kitchen table and pressed his face into his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. Dad, he said, I've been watching that for years. Every summer, I'd think someone needs to say something, and every summer it just. He shook his head. I'm sorry. I should have fought harder for you. You were one voice against the room. I said, that's a hard place to stand. Still not right. No. I agreed, and I helped make it this way. I paid for every problem until they stopped seeing problems. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. What do you need from me? Nothing loud. I said, I don't need a fight. I just need you to be honest if anyone ever asks you straight. He held my eyes for a long moment. Then he nodded once, the way my father used to if they asked me straight. He said, I'll tell them exactly what I've seen. My daughter called that Wednesday. Bright, breezy, the way she always opened. Hey, Dad, checking in on the cottage. Can you go ahead and send Kathy the deposit like usual? I won't be doing that this year. I said, a small laugh. She thought she'd misheard. What do you mean you can't? It's just one call. I mean, I won't be coming to the lake this summer, and I've canceled my account with Lakeview. If you want to book the cottage, you'll need to do it in your own name on your own card. The line went very quiet. Then her voice climbed. You're going to blow up 15 years of tradition over. What's some grudge you want to ruin everyone's summer? Think about the grandkids, Dad. I don't want anyone's summer ruined. I said, I want to stop paying for a vacation. I'm only welcome to fund. I told her Kathy was expecting her call. Then I said good night and set the phone on the counter. It started ringing before I got to the other room. What followed was the loudest week of my life. Cousins I hadn't spoken to since Easter, and aunt on my late wife's side calling to check if I was going through something. A neighbor down the road who just wanted to let me know Diane. My daughter seemed really upset. Every message wore the same coat. Think about the family. Don't let pride wreck the summer. This isn't like you. One cousin just texted me the word selfish. That was it, just that word. I sat in my recliner and read them all, and I felt the old things start up my spine. The guilt, 20 years of it, knows exactly where you live for about an hour. I nearly folded. I'm not too proud to tell you that I told myself it was just a cottage. I told myself it was for the grandkids. I told myself some things aren't worth the fight. That's the voice that had cost me 15 summers, soft and reasonable, wearing the face of love. My thumb moved toward her name to call and fix it. Then my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. She lives 2 hours south and doesn't waste words. I know exactly what's happening. I've watched it for years and held my tongue because it wasn't my house. Don't you dare give in now. I'm with you all the way down. I read it twice, set the phone in my lap. My hands were shaking a little. I'm a steady man, but they were shaking. I didn't answer the cousins. I didn't call my daughter back. I just sat in the quiet of my own house, the one I'd kept warm for everyone else for 15 years, and let the phone ring itself out. It's a strange thing choosing yourself for the first time at 57. My son-in-law showed up Friday night, headlights in my driveway, then his knock heavier than it needed to be. I opened the door. He filled the frame, jaw set, that deal closing energy turned mean. We need to talk, Neil. I let him in. He didn't sit. He stood in my living room like he was appraising it. You're embarrassing this family. He said, vendors are calling. People have already booked their time off work. You're really going to do this because your feelings got hurt. What commitment did I make? I asked. That stopped him for half a second. You always pay, everyone knows that. Everyone assumed that I said that's different. His face went red. You want to talk about the contracts? Fine, whose name is on them? Mine, I said, always has been. You just never had to read them. He stepped closer, going for the loom. Diane carries this whole family. She deserves better than this. Then she can carry the cottage. I said quietly. I walked to the front door and opened it. The junior came in warm and still drive safe. He left. He had to. There was nothing left to say to a man who'd run out of yes. I wasn't there for what happened next. My son was. He told me about it afterward. Sitting at my kitchen table over 2 cups of coffee, and I'll tell it the way he told me. My daughter drove to Lakeview's office in person, certain it would take 5 minutes. She'd rebook under her name, get a receipt, and the problem would disappear before the weekend. Kathy sat her down. She pulled up the account history and turned the monitor so my daughter could see. Then she walked her through the quote for the week. She wanted cottage rental, cleaning, boat, slip, the works. Numbers my daughter had never once in 15 summers had to look at. At the bottom of the screen, the total. Then Kathy scrolled up to the payment history. My name 15 times every July for 15 years, paid in full. She just sat there, my son told me, staring at that screen like the floor moved. After a long silence, my daughter asked Kathy one question. He paid for all of it every year? Yes, ma'am, Kathy said. Always did. My daughter walked out without booking anything. She called my son that same night. He put it on speaker, sitting right across from me at my kitchen table. I need to borrow some money, just enough to hold the date. Things got complicated, and I'm stuck. My son looked at me. I didn't say a word. This was his line to draw, not mine. How much, he asked. She named the number. No, he said. Silence on the line. What? I said, no, I'm not covering the lake house. Same answer as Dad. After everything this family, after everything Dad did for this family, he said, even in quiet for 15 years. While someone else stood on that dock telling people he built the tradition. The line went very still. That's not fair, she finally said. Her voice had gone small. No, my son agreed it wasn't. He hung up. My son and I drove up north at 4th of July. Not to the cottage. We rented a campsite at a state park and cooked over a fire ring and watched the fireworks go up over the tree line. We didn't talk much. It was the best 4th I'd had in a long time. From what reached me through the family grapevine, the rented replacement place fell apart fast. Smaller, farther from the water, booked last minute at a premium. Half the friends canceled when the details changed. The boat rental didn't happen. The fireworks run didn't happen. The Hendersons went somewhere else. The story making the rounds by August wasn't Neil ruined the summer. It was something closer to. Did you know he'd been paying for the whole thing by himself all those years? The Hendersons sent a card in. The mail handwritten, we're sorry for what we assumed. You always seemed like a decent man. Now we understand why. A couple of cousins called to apologize. The one who texted me selfish couldn't quite say it head on. But she tried, and I let her. I'm not in the business of collecting debts of shame. I'd had enough of debts. My daughter and I didn't talk much through August or September. She called in October, just tired this time, not bright. Can I come over, she asked, just me. She sat at my kitchen table and turned her coffee cup in her hands for a while before she said anything real. I never knew, she finally said. I know how that sounds. But I genuinely never looked. It was always handled. You always handled it. I know, I said. I made it easy not to look. She was quiet a long time. Todd keeps saying I made him look bad in front of the neighbors. Like it was my job to stop him from saying things that weren't true. A short, bitter laugh. He's right that it blew back on him. The Hendersons aren't returning his calls. I let that sit. That was between them. I don't know how to do any of it, she admitted. Her voice cracked a little. The deposits, the vendors, the planning, you actually pay for. You always just did it, and I'm 38 years old, and I don't know how to run a family event that I actually cover myself. And I felt the true weight of it then. Not vindication, something closer to grief. I had done this, not the cruelty that was her and her husband, but the helplessness I had paid for so long that my own daughter had never learned to carry the thing. I called it love, some of it was, but it quietly crippled her too. You'll learn, I told her, it's not too late. After she left, the old voice came back. You know, the one sounds exactly like love and cost you everything. She came to you, she apologized more or less. Why not cover next summer? Just the deposit, help her get back on her feet. What's the money for if not your kids? I sat with that voice in the dark of my kitchen, got as far as opening my banking app, thumb hovering over the screen. My phone buzzed. My son, whatever you're thinking about doing right now. Don't I almost laughed, that kid knows me. A second later, my sister, if she asked for money, the answer is the same as June. I closed the app, set the phone down, sat in the quiet of my own house, and let the moment pass without doing a thing. Turns out the hardest part wasn't standing up to my son-in-law, or holding the line while the cousins called, or driving home from that dock without saying a word. The hardest part was sitting alone in my kitchen and not rescuing my daughter from the lesson she needed to learn. Love, I was figuring out at 57, sometimes means letting the people you love find out what things actually weigh. The following Fourth looked nothing like the 15 before it. No lake house, no catering, no rented boat, just my backyard, a gas grill, a tub of ice. My son came with his girlfriend, a quiet woman who laughed easy and asked me how I'd gotten into electrical work. Like the answer mattered to her. My sister came early and took over the kitchen, which felt exactly right, and my daughter came. She brought potato salad. She'd made herself a little heavy on the mustard, and she came with her hands empty of requests. No group chat, no clipboard. She asked if she could help set up the folding table, and I said yes. Things weren't fixed. I want to be honest with you about that. You don't undo 15 years over one cookout. There was a carefulness between us, a tenderness with bruises still underneath it. Her husband wasn't there. She didn't explain. I didn't ask. But she stayed past dark, and when the last neighborhood fireworks popped over the fence line, she found me on the back steps and sat down beside me. I owe you more than I know how to say, she said quietly. I'm not going to try to say all of it tonight. I get it wrong. You don't have to, I told her. I do though. Just this part. She turned to face me. Thank you, Dad, for all those summers. I never once thanked you. I never even saw you doing it. Her voice went thin. I'm sorry. It took losing it for me to find out who was giving it. No favor on the back end. No balance. Do just my daughter thanking her father 15 years late and meaning every word. I forgive you. I said because I did. Not because she'd earned it with the perfect apology, but because carrying it was heavier than setting it down. And I was done carrying things that weren't mine. She cried a little. I put my arm around her, and for the first time in 15 summers, it didn't cost me a dime. Here's what I learned, and I'll give it to you plain. The way I wish someone had handed it to me at 40. You cannot pay your way into someone's respect. You can only pay your way into being used. The day I stopped covering the bill was the day I started matching again. Not as a wallet, but as a man, as a father. Self-worth isn't something you buy for other people. It's something you finally decide you're allowed to keep. I keep mine now. Took me long enough. I went back to Lake Huron that September on my own off-season when the tourists were gone, and the water had turned that flat silver gray it gets in early fall. I rented a small room above a bait shop in Harrisville and spent 3 days fishing alone off a public pier. Nobody to manage, nobody to keep happy. Just me and the water Lynn had loved, and the quiet of a man who finally understood the difference between giving from fullness and giving until there's nothing left. It was the most at peace I'd felt near that water since I lost her.